From the Washington Examiner, at least 4 people are facing federal criminal charges due to their involvement in a violent protest over the weekend outside an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility near Chicago. This is from the Washington Examiner. 4 people have been charged over protests outside ICE facility near Chicago. And let me size this up a bit. Is this related? Let's see. Looks like it, but here, let me just check.
Unlawfully deployed the National Guard in Portland.
Oh, unlawfully,
Attorney
huh?
General Dan Rayfield said sending 200 National
That's what
Guard
you
troops
say.
to his state was not due to any legitimate threat. Trump ordered the National Guard to Oregon after numerous protests targeting an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Portland. Trump also authorized, quote, full force if necessary.
These are paid terrorists.
Uh-oh. I had a fucking feeling.
Okay? These are paid agitators.
Rayfield, Oregon Solicitor General Benjamin Gutman, and other state officials say deploying such troops for law enforcement duties violated federal law. The plaintiffs cited the 1972 court case, Laird v. Tutman, as evidence for their claim. They also said the Constitution prohibited the president from deploying such troops. Rayfield says, quote, Oregon communities are stable and our local officials have been clear. We have the capacity to manage public safety without federal interference.
Uh-huh. That's a load of horse shit. All right. Looks like that's it. I'm not sure how related that was. I mean, it was a bit related. I just don't. All right. Anyway. So this is pertaining to the 4 people who are facing federal criminal charges due to their involvement in a violent protest over the weekend outside an Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility near Chicago. ICE locations. Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. All right. ICE locations have become increasingly targeted in violent attacks over the last several months, including last week's shooting at an ICE Dallas office that killed 1 detainee and wounded 2 others. No officers were injured in the attack. 3 protesters are being charged with forcibly assaulting federal officers in Illinois, while the other one is being charged with forcibly resisting federal officers, according to criminal complaints filed Sunday and shared by the Chicago Sun-Times. 2 of the charged suspects were allegedly carrying firearms with lawful permits during the protest on Saturday in Broadview, Illinois. Let's see. The following morning, the Department of Homeland Security announced 2 guns were recovered near the detention center, and an investigation into what happened to be an explosive device was underway. Looks like we're getting paywall now, aren't it? In total, 11 protesters were arrested during the clash with federal officers. Yep. Choose your plan. Digital. Let's do digital. Maybe one day. Maybe one day, Washington Examiner. But ain't gonna be today. I don't make that kind of money. $52? Are you kidding? That's a ton of money for me. All right. So we'll just move on to the next one. It's going to be related. Attorney General Pamela Bondi just issued a memo to all Justice Department components making it clear violence against federal officers will not be tolerated. The DOJ is deploying assets to protect ICE facilities, arrest violent agitators on the spot, and bring the strongest federal charges possible. The rule of law will prevail. This is from the Office of the Attorney General. And it's memorandum for Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also the ATF, Director of U.S. Marshal Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and Director of the Executive Office of U.S. Attorneys. And it's coming, of course, from the Attorney General, initialed, Ending Political Violence Against ICE. All right. As President Trump stated, we are witnessing a new era of extreme political violence that is a culmination of sophisticated, organized campaigns of targeted intimidation, radicalization, threats, and violence designed to silence opposing speech, limit political activity, change or direct policy outcome, and prevent the functioning of a democratic society. Domestic terrorism have firebombed Tesla vehicles and dealerships. Would-be assassins have tried to murder President Trump twice and tried to kill Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Assassins in Minnesota have gunned down lawmakers and Catholic school children in 2 separate incidents. And just a few weeks ago, an assassin murdered Charlie Kirk in cold blood. Riots in Los Angeles and Portland reflect more than 1,000% increase in attacks on ICE officers since January 21st, compared to the same period last year. Last week, a sniper opened fire from a nearby rooftop on an ICE Dallas field office, leaving 1 dead and 2 others critically wounded. This past weekend, while Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson were Go to the next page here. Villainizing ICE agents as Nazis and secret police, more than 200 rioters blocked access to one of the gates in front of an ICE processing facility in the Chicago area, chanting, "Arrest ICE" and "Shoot ICE," and attempting to forcibly and illegally trespass on federal property. At least one rioter was arrested with a firearm. Rioters arrived with boxes of fireworks, N95 masks, gas masks, goggles, knee and elbow protection, and large quantities of food and water. Well, I wonder who's paying for all that shit. Probably the Soros Foundation and all those top secret NGOs that like to work in the shadows. Likewise, rioters in Portland, Oregon have repeatedly attacked and laid siege to an ICE processing center. These rioters have been well organized and appear to be well funded. Yeah, I watched some of the live stream. There were a few people live streaming down there last night, and yeah, there were people were picking fights. People were talking shit. I didn't see any arrests or anything, but it was like 10 o'clock Oregon time when I ended up, tuning out. So, but I believe there were at least a few arrests. The four, not sure if they're pertaining to last night's situation, but anyway, so enough is enough. The Department of Justice will stand strong with federal law enforcement officers are attacked or threatened for doing their sworn duty on behalf of the United States government. I'm directing the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the United States Marshal Service, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation to immediately direct all necessary officers and agents to defend ICE facilities and personnel whenever and wherever they come under attack, including Portland and Chicago. Our officers will suppress all unlawful rioting and arrest every person suspected of threatening or assaulting a federal law enforcement officer or interfering with federal law enforcement operations. So that last part is kind of important. Interfering with the enforcement, where did it go? Interfering with federal law enforcement operations. So if they're standing in front of an ICE vehicle when they're trying to exit the gate, if they're blocking anything that's going on with ICE, if they stand in the way, if they even stand in the driveway, I'm assuming she's saying that they will be arrested. And that is quite important, especially with regard to Chicago, because that's exactly what they've been doing. They've been blocking that exit gate, preventing ICE vehicles from leaving. Now, they still leave regardless, but they have to inch their way out extremely slowly because there's 100 people standing in front of the vehicle. But they are interfering with their regular duties as federal officers, and as a result, that could come with a penalty of up to 8 years in federal prison just for obstruction, just for obstructing their duties. So standing in front of ICE vehicles, look, dude, they got to arrest every last one of them. They have to. If they keep fucking around and they don't arrest them and they just kind of push them out of the way, or they just hit them with fucking pepper spray, fire rubber bullets and tear gas at them, that's not going to do anything. They keep coming back every single day. You got to throw them in jail, stack charges on them, hit them in their pocketbook, hit them where it hurts. Even though there's a lot of these nonprofit organizations, they pay for their legal costs and their lawyers and all that stuff, which I know the federal government has said that they're going to go after those organizations too, the ones who are funding their legal funds and all that. So, all right. Anyway, so let's see. I am further directing the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Oregon and Northern District of Illinois to charge all such persons with the highest provable offense available under the law. All state and local law enforcement officers protecting ICE facilities and personnel are hereby added to a temporary ICE protection task force alongside each of the department's law enforcement components. The U.S. Attorney's Office for each district shall prosecute any individual who assaults or forcibly impedes or intimidates these officers, who interferes with the performance of these officers' official duties, or who attempts to do so, consistent with 18 U.S.C. Section 111 and other applicable federal laws. I further direct the Department's Office of Justice Programs and Community-Oriented Policing Services to provide as soon as possible, consistent with existing statutory authority, grant funding and training and technical assistance support to the federal, state, and local law enforcement officers protecting ICE facilities and personnel. This support may include funding for the purchase of body-worn cameras and other such equipment as may be deemed necessary and appropriate by OJP and COPS in consultation with ATF, DEA, FBI, and USMS. And the charging priorities directed by this memorandum are not limited to those criminals who are caught red-handed committing acts of violence against ICE facilities and personnel. The president is exactly right. We must disband and uproot networks, entities, and organizations that promote organized violence, violent intimidation, conspiracies against rights, and other efforts to disrupt the functioning of a democratic society. The Department of Justice will arrest and prosecute to the fullest extent of the law every person who aids, abets, and conspires to commit these crimes, whether through funding, coordination, planning, or other means. Working together with our interagency partners, we will take back our country and make America safe again. There you go. From AG Pam Bondi. All right, let's move on to the next topic here. Looks like it's still related, though. From GOP, watch. Democrats vilify and dehumanize ICE agents, putting a target on the backs of the men and women who keep our country safe. Their dangerous words have fueled assaults and encouraged lawlessness. This must stop. Let's take a watch.
Violence against ICE officers and agents are up 400%.
Over 500%.
700%.
830%.
1,000% when you compare it to this time last year.
They are using fighting words. They are inciting violence against the feds very clearly, and they are responsible for this.
Very obviously.
Modern day Gestapo.
The modern day Gestapo.
Gestapo-like behavior.
It does look like the Gestapo.
That's the SS in the Gestapo.
When I see ICE, I see slave patrols.
Picked up by, hooded thugs in the street.
The ICE, thugs.
Nondescript thugs.
Really, it's just immigration thuggery.
Like vigilante.
By the way, anybody who's not really politically involved all that much, these are all Democrat politicians. These are all elected officials who are essentially radicalizing their base. That's really what they're doing. They're comparing ICE agents or Border Patrol or probably even FBI and all the other federal agents and agencies. They're comparing them to the secret police from the Soviet Union. They're comparing them to the Gestapo, to the Nazi SS. They're literally calling them these things. And they're federal officers, man. It's the federal government. It's absolutely insane.
They look more like gang members.
They've lost their fucking minds.
People committing crimes. Klansmen.
Secret police.
A secret federal police
Klansmen.
force.
That's actually really hilarious that they would even compare them to Klansmen, because the Klansmen were started by the Democrats right after the Civil War, when the Democrats lost the Civil War.
This is a terrorist
Very
organization.
interesting.
And kidnapping and disappearing people.
Stealing and, yes, kidnapping people.
The vice mayor allegedly calling on gang members to defend the city from these immigration raids.
I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles.
Stop! Mass!
Look, I want to know where the 360,000 children that the Biden administration lost, I want to know where they are. Sure, the other children that she's talking about, yeah, we should go find them too. But no, there's still, is it 360? Actually, it might even be 380,000. They estimate 400,000 children, migrant children, that have been lost inside the United States somewhere because the Biden administration refused to keep track of them. And now there's close to 500,000 children that are missing. And with the whole Epstein bullshit that happened over the last 20, 30 years, God only knows what the fuck might be happening. It's horrific to imagine what might be happening to countless thousands of children that the Biden administration lost, and now we don't know where they are. So far, the FBI, they found about 20,000 so far. That's why I wasn't sure if the number was 360 or 380. Probably around 380 that's still missing. So that's who I want to find.
ICE agents from
Democrats don't seem
deporting
to give a
our
shit.
neighbors.
Every single one of
They're
them,
the ones who lost them.
no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes, will of course be identified.
Our police do not cooperate with ICE. We don't.
Our local police department will not ever cooperate with ICE.
One of the most
And you have to ask yourself, why are they refusing to cooperate with the federal government to this extent? Because they are losing constituencies. They're losing people that they can count in the census in order to get more Democrat seats in the House. That is what this whole thing is all about. It takes, 700,000? I think it's 700,000 roughly. That's how many people are required to gain another seat in the House. And if a city like Chicago, if they have 700,000 illegal immigrants, or even 500,000, or whatever the number might be, all of those people account toward another congressional seat. This is all in the name of power. That is all they care about. They don't care about the jobs that are being taken away from Americans. They don't care about the apartments, the cost of rent going up sky high, because these people got to live somewhere. The same with the cost of electricity going sky high, because they tap into the electrical grid too. They are human beings, so they do require electricity. The same with water usage and everything else. And when you add 10, 20, 30 million people into a system that's not prepared to take that amount of people in virtually overnight, you get an increased cost of everything. Our food went up. It wasn't just COVID. It's also a large influx of people that just suddenly showed up inside our country. And these Democrats, they don't give a shit about you. They don't care. They don't care that you're having to pay a much higher amount for pretty much anything and everything you can think of. And a lot of it has to do with this large influx of illegal immigration. They don't give a shit. All they want is fucking power.
Inspiring things have been when people encircle courtrooms and refuse to allow ICE agents in.
It's time to escalate or fight back or push back against this fascist government. That's right.
We have to stand up and fight back.
They're trying to protect their own power.
Shot for the
That's
anti-Trump
it.
resistance.
All about.
There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public.
Talk about being used as political pawns
on the part of these people on the left, and it's gonna get some people killed.
And what's even more appalling is right now they're about to shut down the federal government, which I'm getting to here in a bit. They're about to shut down the federal government because the Democrats are demanding almost $1 trillion for immigrant health care, illegal immigrant health care. They want to restore health care for illegal immigrants. And they want to use your tax dollars to do it, and they're willing to shut down the government to make it happen. And according to the Republicans, they're not going to cave. They're not going to back down. I'll believe it when I see it. But I just have a feeling that the Republicans, as always, they're going to end up caving and saying, well, we're not going to give you $1 trillion because that's insane. We'll give you $100 billion. And then the Democrats say 500. No, 150. It's going to be that fucking bullshit. And I hope it's not. I hope they don't give in at all. Because I think it's going to get to a point where, look, a lot of Democrat voters work for the federal government. Probably a lot more than registered Republicans, especially in Washington, D.C. The amount of people out of the federal employees that live in Washington, D.C. who vote, 90% of them vote Democrat. And the same applies all over the country. So all these people that are involved with the federal government who are going to negatively benefit from the government getting shut down, they're going to wear down on these Democrat politicians over time, I think. And that's why I think that Republicans should stand their ground, because this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. They agreed to the provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill, and they helped sign. Look, not all Democrats signed off on it. I'm sure the vast majority of them said, hell no. However, it passed in the Senate. So, but what they want is they want a lot of those insane left-wing policies, especially with regard to funding, that they lost with USAID, with what they lost with public broadcasting. They want to restore all of that. And that is why they're trying to shut down the government. And what their argument is that, well, the Republicans, they're the ones that control the House. They control the Senate. They control the Oval Office. Hell, they even control the Supreme Court. So we're not shut down the government because we don't have majority control. No, yeah, they do in the Senate, because there's 53 Republicans in the Senate that have a vote. However, they need 60 votes in order to pass the bill for funding. So it's very much the Democrats that are holding this up, led by Chuck Schumer. All right, moving on to Senate Judiciary Republicans. Tomorrow at 9:15 Eastern, Blue City Chaos and Tragedy, how the Trump administration is addressing the human cost of soft on-crime policies. This happens tomorrow morning. Democrats wanted a hearing on the president's efforts to fight crime in blue cities. Now they have one. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I'll just read maybe the first paragraph or two. So this is from Chuck Grassley. This is addressed to Chuck Grassley from the U.S. Senate. Who's this signed by? Just to see. Oh, Richard Durbin, ranking member. Okay. Dick Durbin, who is the Democrat ranking member in the Senate. And he says, I request that you immediately convene a Judiciary Committee hearing on President Trump's threats to deploy the military to Chicago and other American cities. Reports indicate that the Pentagon has been planning this dangerous, unwarranted, and unconstitutional military deployment at Trump's direction for weeks. Yeah, I'm sure they have. These threats come as the administration has already deployed American troops unlawfully and unnecessarily against their fellow Americans in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. Yeah, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the mayor in Washington, D.C. not only praised the collapse in crime in Washington, D.C., but she signed an executive order for the city of Washington, D.C., directing all police officers in D.C. to fully cooperate with all federal agents and agencies, and it had no expiration date. It was signed indefinitely. So she's already come out and praised the insane reduction in crime in an extremely short amount of time, within just a few weeks. It virtually disappeared. I might be wrong, but I believe there still hasn't even been a single murder in Washington, D.C. since the feds essentially started cracking down. I don't believe there has been. And we're coming up on almost 2 months. But if there has been a murder, and if you're aware of it, please leave me a comment, let me know, because I could be wrong, but I believe there hasn't been any murders since that happened. So anyway, just one more paragraph here. The domestic deployment of the military into American communities raises serious concerns within the jurisdiction of the Judiciary Committee that warrant an immediate hearing. The founders of this nation understood that an unchecked military turned inward on its own people is a grave threat to ordered liberty. Look, dude, these cities are not orderly, not even close. These liberties include the rights of speech and assembly safeguarded by the First Amendment and the protection against unreasonable searches and seizures secured by the Fourth Amendment. Well, what about the Second Amendment? What about the Second Amendment? That one comes before the Fourth Amendment, if they were ordered and in terms of importance, because blue cities, oh God, they hate the Second Amendment, absolutely hate it. Last thing they want is for their citizens to protect themselves with arms. Well, no, of course not. But anyway, it's a couple of pages here from Dick Durbin. Yeah, so the Republicans, this was posted by the Senate Judiciary Republicans. So they demanded it. They got it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out tomorrow morning. It's going to be heated. It's going to be very frustrating. It's going to be unnerving at times. And at other times, it's going to be quite satisfying. It's going to be one of those situations tomorrow. I don't know how long it's going to go. It could go 4 hours, 6 hours. Probably no more than maybe 4 or 5 hours. That'd be my guess. But I reposted it if you want to read the rest of this for yourself, or you can just go straight to SEN Judiciary GOP over on X. And my X profile is at SPAETHON. There it is up there at the top. Yep, there you go. The swamp. The swamp. SPAETHON. It's the same as my YouTube name, except I've got an N at the end. I already have the YouTube name Spathon, but I started this new channel for this show because the algorithm recommended that I do so. So I did just that.